Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Icing on the Skate podcast. Hi Chris, how you doing?
Hiya!
So of course, once again, me and Chris, we're here again. It's episode 4 of season 2 already. We're a month into the Elite League season, Chris.
Whoop,
How
whoop.
does that make you feel?
Like time is passing far too quickly.
Absolutely. Like, it's kind of blink and you'll miss it at this point, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
welcome back to the stream, guys. Hope you're enjoying. Welcome. I hope you had a lovely day as well so far. For those of you who don't know, this is the podcast where we talk all things Elite Ice Hockey League, NHL, and a bit of everything in between, to be honest. Another week of the Elite League has gone past. Some pretty big high-scoring games taking place. Some unsuspecting shockers taking place as well in terms of the amount of goals scored and teams that didn't do as well as they kind of hoped for. But yeah, we're going to go through them now for you. So, Chris, would you like to go through the handy dandy box scores?
Okie dokie. Right, we'll start with the Elite League. Saturday night, Panthers 2, Clan 4, and Stars 6, Flames 2. On Sunday, Steelers 2, Devils 3, Panthers 2, Clan 3 in a shootout, Blaze 6, Storm 4, and Flames 7, Stars 1. And in everyone's favourite Challenge Cup,
Hey!
it was the Devils 5, Blaze 1, Giants 7, Flyers 2, Storm 5, Steelers 2 on Saturday. And on Sunday, just the one game, Flyers 5, Giants 2.
There you go. Perfect. So, lots of high-scoring games taking place. A lot of unsuspecting high-scoring games as well. Like you just mentioned, let's take the Coventry-Manchester game in the league. 10 goals.
And the Dundee-Guildford game.
Yeah, and the Dundee-Guildford game, 8 goals. And 8 goals the night before. They scored 16 goals in two games. That's ridiculous. That's crazy. We've kind of seen a lot more close scorelines, low-scoring games so far this season. So now that we're kind of a month in, it's either teams are getting a little bit tired or they're having a bit of a bad game, or another team just like, we just want to put 7 goals on our opponent. Why not? Like, we've waited long enough to show our real firepower, so let's just get into it. Why not? So do you want to take us through the standings for the Elite League, Chris?
Standings. Yeah, we'll do the league first because that's more easier to understand.
Good call. Yep.
So top of the table are the Glasgow Clan with 8 points.
Yeah.
Then Fife in second and Sheffield in third, both on 6 points. Then Panthers 4th, Dundee 5th on 5 points. And then Devils 6th, Flames 7th, Blaze 8th, and Storm 9th on 4 points. And then bottom of the table at the moment, the Belfast Giants on 3 points.
But
it is worth pointing out that they've only played 2 games.
With the caveat that the Belfast Giants have only played a pair of games and they have won one and lost one in overtime. So they still haven't been defeated in regulation yet. They've played a pair of games. They've played the least amount of games of any team in the league. Of course,
because they've been playing Challenge Cup and CHL.
And CHL. I was going to mention as well, the Cardiff Devils only played 3 games in the league also. There's teams, Nottingham and Dundee have played double the amount of games they have in the league. So
yeah, it's because they've been getting through the Challenge Cup. Because obviously league games, as long as they're finished before March, you can kind of play them any time.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas the Challenge Cup games, we've got to get the group stages done because it will hold up the rest of the competition.
Absolutely.
So they've come back off the Champions Hockey League and played a ton more. You know, they've crammed in their their Challenge Cup games to get the groups finished.
So I think that, Chris, I think you need to fess up. I think you need to apologise to the Glasgow Clan for what you said 2 weeks ago. Because for those of you who don't remember what Chris said 2 weeks ago, he posed the question.
I got a clip.
He posed the question to both myself and Max, good friend of the channel who was on the podcast that week. Should the Glasgow Clan and Glasgow Clan fans be worried about how they were doing? I preached patience. I said it was very early on. You never know what's going to happen. All it takes is for one good game to flip around and sort it out, and then you're on a winning streak. The Glasgow Clan, sure, they're only 5 games in, but they're top of the league. So, Chris, take it away.
Yes, well, just for some context, when I did pose the question, they'd won 1 and lost 4 in all competitions.
But where were most of those losses, Chris?
They were mostly away.
No. In what competition were they in?
Oh, sorry, the Challenge Cup. Right,
There
yeah,
you
got
go.
you. And then they win away at Cardiff, win away at Sheffield, and win twice away at Nottingham.
So they've played the 3 of the 4 arena teams and beaten them all.
Yes.
And there you go. I mean, Fitzgerald, once again, prefacing it, 5 games in, they could go and lose their next 5-10 games. You never know what's going to happen. But the Glasgow Clan, fair play to them. They're 3-1-0 so far. Or, no, 3... What? Oh, do they class overtime wins as different? So they're 4-1-0 then. Yeah, they're 4-1-0.
They are, yeah, but
Yeah.
in the like the full table breakdown,
Yeah,
they
I hate
just have
that.
a different column.
Yeah, I hate that. So they're 4-1-0 so far this season. They've played incredibly well after their bit of a slow start. Looks like the team's figuring things out. And like we said, beat Sheffield, beat Cardiff, and they've beaten Nottingham twice. So I think that's as good of a indication that they're out for blood this year. And I like it. Fair play to them. It's been a little while since we've had a Scottish team that's like really competed for a championship. So let's do it. Why not? Fair play Glasgow. Good job. Especially since they lost their coach like at the start of the off-season, which they weren't expecting. That was like a massive blindside to them. So good job. And then you've got Fife in second, and they've only played 4 games in the league. Sheffield, Nottingham, and Dundee, who are 3, 4, 5 behind them, have all played 2 more games than them. So they have 2 games in hand on the next 3 place teams, and they're tied for second place. So all they need is another win out of them, and they're tied first. So the Scottish teams have really gotten off to a good start here. Like, Dundee as well, 5 points in 6 games, that's not too bad. I mean, it's not the best, it's not Glasgow or Fife, but then again, they're sitting 5th in the table. They're doing better than Guildford, they're doing better than Coventry, they're doing better than Manchester, which last year they didn't do. So, fair play to the Dundee Stars as well. So far early in this league, it's been all Scottish teams, which is a massive difference compared to years past. So, fair play to them. And then you've got Sheffield and Nottingham still struggling to find any sort of consistency. You've got Sheffield on 3-3-0. You've got the Panthers on 2-3-1. So, great. Good job, arena teams. Really making a good case for yourselves, lads. I'm so impressed. And then I don't consider like Cardiff and Belfast as like I don't really consider them in the conversation for this stuff at the moment because they've played so little.
No, they've not played
compared to
enough
everybody
games.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So fair enough.
They're not being, if you want to be really kind of into that, Cardiff win the 2 games in hand, they go joint top.
Exactly.
Belfast win the 3 games in hand, they go top.
Exactly, and they are the type of teams that could well do that. They're good teams. They've been playing against the best that Europe has to offer. So I think they'll be okay. But do you want to take us through the Challenge Cup scores as well, since we had a few more games from that?
Well, I did the scores, you mean the standings?
That's what I mean. Yeah, the standings.
Okay, so Group A.
Okay.
First is Dundee on 6, second Fife on 4, third Belfast on 4, and fourth Glasgow on 2.
Okay.
They've all played 4 games.
Yep.
Group B is Cardiff in first on 6, Guildford in second on 3, and Coventry bottom on 2. And Group C is Nottingham top on 4, Sheffield second on 4, and Manchester bottom on 2.
So Dundee are playing incredibly well this year. I'm putting it out there. Top of their group in the Challenge Cup, mid in the table. Considering they're the team with probably the lowest budget, they roll 3 lines a night. I think in all of the like the Elite League uploads the starting lineups and stuff and like the line combinations before games now. I don't think I've seen a single one where Dundee has 4 forward lines. So they're playing.
They don't have enough players for it.
There you go, and they're top in the Challenge Cup, midway in the table. Like, you got to give credit to the Dundee Stars. They have had a pretty good start to the season.
Oh, yeah.
It's not top of the league, but I mean, how many games do they play in the Challenge Cup group stage again?
Dundee's group, they play 6, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Glasgow could only get a possible of 6 points. So they've already guaranteed themselves a pretty decent spot in their group. Obviously, obviously it depends who they play in the Challenge Cup for those final 2 games. Is it they've played Belfast already? Is it?
They've got to play Belfast and Fife.
Belfast and Fife. Okay.
But Dundee are through already because a tiebreaker comes down to the head-to-head, I think, and they beat Glasgow both times.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think they're already through, but I could be wrong.
Perfect. Then you've got the second group. Cardiff have played well, Guildford have played pretty well, and Coventry have played And then like the other 2 groups, there's not really much in it, to be honest. Like, any game could make the difference. The only difference being Cardiff has played 1 more game in their group, and Sheffield have played 1 more game in their group. So
yeah, but don't forget the 2 groups of 3. They play 8 games, not 6.
They play 8 games. Okay. And then is it the bottom 2 of B and C?
Yeah, so at the moment it would be a play-in match, Coventry against Manchester.
Right. Which just doesn't make any sense as to why that's a thing still. But that's me.
But
that's just me. So yeah, anything you want to mention about the standings, about Challenge Cup, league games, Chris? Anything that's jumped out to you? Of course, you were at the Nottingham games this weekend.
Yes, I was at both Nottingham games. They were okay in part and not very good in part.
I would imagine the disappointing is probably the best word to use. Underwhelming.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of hype around it going into the game because they'd been away for so long. And then they just never... The second game on the Sunday was a lot better in terms of the crowd got going much earlier because of the early goal.
Right.
On Saturday, it was just it felt a bit flat. I'm not going to lie.
Really?
It was better. The atmosphere was better on the Sunday with fewer people than the Saturday.
That's interesting.
I mean, as Ben says, the one bad goal that really turned everything on Saturday.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, Panthers gave the puck away pretty much on the red line. And then, name escapes me off the top of my head because my notebook is on the other side of the house, just turned on the red line. And I mean, when I say red line, I mean on the... it's Rasmus Berriam, that's it. I mean, in that semicircle for the referees by the scorer's bench.
Right.
He turned and shot from there, and it beat Carr.
Oh.
And that just kind of...
Great job. Well done.
And the fans at that point just kind of didn't... They kind of went out of the game a bit. Yeah. And then on the Sunday, when Panthers were 1-up, and then Carr conceded the delay of game penalty, and then Glasgow equalised from that delay of game penalty, and then he being unhappy that the penalty was given in the first place, then got an abusive official penalty.
Okay.
Straight off the back of that. So Glasgow had the power play, scored from it, and then got a fresh 2 minutes for the abusive official.
Which we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail later on, I believe.
Yeah,
right?
And then straight after that, I think it was pretty much straight after that. Let me just check the game sheet again.
Sure.
Yeah, it was only then 15 seconds after that penalty expired, then they killed it off, that Panthers then took a penalty for too many men on the ice. So they had Glasgow had pretty much 5 minutes of power play time. They only got 1 from it, but they had 5 minutes of power play time.
I've got to be honest, I see far too many tweets from the Nottingham Panthers saying they're on the penalty kill. I don't understand
how tell you how many?
Go for it.
What do you want? Just this weekend?
Just this weekend.
They were 7 for 10.
They gave up 10 penalties.
10 penalties. They have given up so far this season. This is in all games, which is 9 of them. 9 games, 49 penalties, and they've killed off 42 for 85.71%.
So you're telling me they spent 20 minutes on the penalty kill this weekend. So they spent a sixth of the playing time this weekend in the penalty box.
Pretty much. I mean, obviously it doesn't quite work because of the power play goals, but yes.
Essentially it was a 2-minute penalty. So you're kidding me. Like, that's awful. That's so
yeah,
bad.
Max is like Wallace was going mental. Yeah, he was. I mean,
absolutely.
in the interview we had with him afterwards, he didn't hold back at all, as you might have seen.
Nor should he. That's the job of a head coach, to keep his players in line and be like, you're taking too many dumb penalties, sort it out. But anyway, so like we've mentioned, there's some surprises taking place in the standings at the moment. I think if you told me 4 weeks ago that 2 Scottish teams would be leading the league a month in, I probably would have laughed at you.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Well, I mean, and I mean, there's things that have happened that just doesn't. I mean, Panthers have now lost 4 Elite League games in a row.
Yep.
I mean, Sheffield have lost their last 3, one of them being Challenge Cup.
Yep.
It's all kind of a bit topsy-turvy, which is kind of also brilliant at the same time.
It is quite nice to see other teams taking the top spots. I've got to be honest. Like, it's refreshing. And once again, we say this every week, but in a different context. It just goes to show how competitive this league is now. You don't get easy wins. You have to, like, if your team's not having a good night, the opposing team will take advantage of it. Whether you're a Cardiff or a Dundee, you know? So, fair play to the teams that are taking advantage of this opportunity, and it sucks for the big arena teams with the big budgets that can't seem to get a team together. It's quite ironic that the teams with the biggest budgets and the teams with the biggest and the most impressive facilities can't seem to figure out a way to win. You know? I'm talking specifically about Sheffield and Nottingham. Like, it's gone so badly for them. I mean, fair play, they're 3rd and 4th in the league, but they've played 6 games. Like, they've played double the amount that Cardiff has, and at least two more than Fife and Manchester. So it's like, it's not, sure, it's all very close. Like, the gap between first place and last place is only 5 points. That's only going to continue to increase as the season goes on, I would imagine. But it's nice to see other teams at the top. It's nice to see Fife taking 2nd place. It's nice to see Dundee in 5th and not in the bottom where they always have been for the last 3 seasons. It's refreshing. It's a breath of fresh air, and it once again shows us that the Elite League is a fun league to watch because you just don't know what's going to happen on game night.
Yeah, I know.
Which I feel like that's very telling of the sport of hockey. Like, I'd say hockey more so than any other sport. It's so difficult to predict who's going to win a game.
Yeah, it is. And I know, obviously, Panthers losing both games. When we went to do the interviews afterwards, I don't know if there are any Panthers fans in here that have watched the interviews, but we spoke to Rick Strachan on Sunday. And that got a lot of comments of, oh, it's been bad when they send Rick Strachan out rather than Tim, and, all of this. And I will just clear up that we asked to speak to Rick. They didn't send him. We asked to speak to him for a bit of variety.
Absolutely.
Particularly seeing as it was going to be very much the same tone as the night before.
Oh, I would imagine Tim Wallace was incensed with his team.
I said yes. So it wasn't a case of, we've played badly, let's send Rick Strachan out. It was we asked to speak to Rick.
Yeah, because it's nice to get the assistant coach's perspective as well. Like, other teams around the league do it, why not yours, So yeah, that's all the stuff that's happened in terms of the games that have taken place and what the standings look like at the moment. Of course, Belfast and Cardiff still have a few games in hand, and I would imagine they'll be climbing up the league standings.
I would
massively.
suspect so, but they have got their final Champions Hockey League games coming up in the next few weeks.
Yes, they do, which will be very interesting to watch. I'm going to be excited to see how those teams do, especially Cardiff, considering they're playing Frölunda, which is not an easy game to play.
No, but neither's Belfast playing Luella.
Yeah, but Frölunda, Like, come on.
Oh yeah.
So, let's move on to some of the news that took place in the Elite League. Not too much news, but we finally had something. The Department of Player Safety's back, ladies and gentlemen.
Yay! Everybody's
the Department of Player
favourite.
Safety. They finally put out another. They finally handed out another suspension. I think for the first time in 2 weeks.
Yeah, since the first weekend.
Yeah, we talked about them week 1, and then week 2 and 3. I don't think there was anything.
No.
There may have been one week 2. I'm not sure, but definitely didn't have one last week. And now we've got another one. So, Brett Ferguson of the Guildford Flames has been suspended for 1 game. He received a 1-game suspension for slew-footing. It's an incident that happened on Sunday the 22nd of September, so last weekend, involving Guildford Flames number 18, Brett Ferguson, during the game between the Five Flyers at the Guildford Flames, and the Guildford Flames, which is deemed as a slew-foot. So the key references for it, effective immediately, he was suspended for 1 game. He's obviously already served that suspension.
Served it, yeah.
Key references, there was a slew foot, there was a leg sweep from behind, upper body in front to create an opposite motion from the leg sweep, and it was a Category 1 careless. So, there you go. I haven't watched the suspension footage. I've got to be honest. Have you watched it? Do you want to explain how it happened?
So, coming down the left side in the offensive zone, it was Dundee, wasn't it? Five.
Guildford, yeah.
Made a pass across the centre as Ferguson came in, and he brought his arm up to make the body check, and then brought his left leg again, tripped the player up. The video is not the best, purely because it's right against the boards, and the puck had gone into towards the other side, so of course the camera followed the puck.
Okay.
Which meant you see the foot go behind, and you see the Five player start to go down, but then that's all you see. You don't see them land, any of the aftermath or what have you. So there wasn't a great amount for the league to go on, but being able to slow it down frame by frame, they could do enough to hand out the suspension. So I suspect, well, I don't know, because it was only Category 1 careless, but I suppose if they had a full thing and they could see how the Five player landed, or if there was any injuries or anything, which obviously there wasn't, it may have been 2, but from the video, 1 seems fair.
Okay, perfect. So, 1 game suspension to Ferguson. As we said, he's already served that suspension.
Yeah, he served that in the 6-2 loss to Dundee.
There you go. And then they played Dundee the day after, didn't they?
And he got an assist.
There you go. So he's definitely back in the lineup. He's doing his job, so fair play to him. And a lesson, don't slew foot, folks. Then we move on to the player of the week for week 4. We did mention him briefly last week. I think it was announced as we were
on the
podcast last week. But now the official article from the Elite League has come out. So this is the player of the week for week 4. I think this isn't for this week just gone. It's for the week before, isn't it?
Yes, it's for the week ending, the 22nd. So
yeah. So the player of the week for week 4 of the 1920 Elite Ice Hockey League season was Kevin Dufour, the Dundee Stars forward. Let me just find out. He's 27 years old, in case you were wondering. And he got
4 goals.
4 points. 4 goals, that's it. Sorry, yeah.
4 goals.
4 goals.
2 against Belfast in their 4-3 win, and 2 against Manchester in the 5-3 win.
There you go. So he's a very important player to the Dundee Stars having that success. I mean, Dundee...
Yes, 7 goals already this season.
There you go. And he's had a pretty good... The Dundee Stars had a pretty good weekend last weekend. 1 big blowout loss, 1 big high-scoring win. So he's obviously a big part of that, so fair play to him. We mentioned him in more detail last week, but just wanted to clarify that he was the player of the week for week 4. So we've had 4 players of the week and 4 Department of Player Safety calls. Number 4 seems to be the lucky number at the moment. Then we've got the icing on the skate players of the week. So I'm going to go first with mine. I don't actually know Chris's this week, so I'm very interested to see.
I told you it.
Oh, no, you did. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah. So, my player of the week for this week for the Icing on the Skate podcast, episode 4, is Stevie Lee of the Guildford Flames.
Hey.
I picked a Guildford Flames player last week. I'm very much aware of that. But the reason I chose Stevie Lee this week is because there were so many goals scored this last weekend between Dundee and Guildford. 16 goals in total. And Stevie Lee didn't help score any of them. In fact, he was a -3, and that's literally all he did.
Right.
He was on the ice for 3 goals against, and he took like half a dozen shots in the 2 games, and that's all he did. So
There really aren't many. So of the Guildford Flames roster who played in both those games,
Yep.
Steve Lee didn't get a point.
Yep.
Eric Lindhagen didn't get a point.
Yep.
And Corbin Baldwin didn't get a point.
So 3
That's
players.
it. 3 players of the entire roster, obviously excluding the netminders, didn't get a point.
2 of them ex-Panthers as well.
Yeah, 2 of them ex-Panthers.
Yeah, Nottingham Panthers. So, yeah, Stevie Lee, you're my player of the week this week. You were on the ice for 3 goals against, and you didn't contribute anything offensively, except taking a couple of shots that did nothing. So, congratulations, StevieLee. You're welcome, bud. Testimonial man from last year. Anyway, Chris, your player of the week. Let's hear it.
My player of the week is a team again, because I did Dundee Stars last week, didn't I? Specifically Alex Leclerc.
Yep.
My player of the week, after 617 days and just over a year and a half and a 51-game losing streak stretching back to January the 20th, 2018. My team of the week for finally winning a game is the Nottingham Lions!
Hey! Yeah!
Nottingham!
The Nottingham
Let's
Lions
gloss over the
finally
fact it was in the
won.
Midlands Cup against Widnes, who are in the league below. Let's
Yeah.
gloss over that.
Yeah, ignore that.
We won a game!
They won a game, ladies and gents. The Nottingham Lions
3-2.
finally
Bailey challenge with, I think it was 12 minutes to go. You are a legend.
You might go down in Nottingham Lions history.
It's such a long time coming. Where they haven't won a game since I started doing commentary, which they're starting to get suspicious with me about.
But there you go. That's awesome. So congratulations to the Nottingham Lions for finally winning a game. You deserved it. Great bunch of guys down there for the Lions organisation. So, except for their commentator, but that's neither here nor there.
Oh, you know, one of the best thing is we were still massively outshot.
Really? What was the stats?
So we won 3-2.
Okay.
We had 15 shots and scored
15?
3.
Wow.
They had 48.
Oh, come on, Lions. You don't make it easy for yourselves, do ya?
So that was nearly 4 times.
Yep.
No, just over 3 times more.
Wow.
And we still won.
And you still
Just
won.
like Dundee.
Just like Dundee. If the Dundee Stars can do it, so can the Lions.
Yes! Now I just need them to win at home.
Absolutely. So those are your Icing on the Skate podcast players of the week. Feel free to let us know in the live chat who you think your players of the week are. We'll take a look at them and see what we think as well. There's obviously deserving candidates from multiple teams every week. So we like to do like one proper one silly one. You know, keep it fresh and interesting. You don't see the Elite League going, oh, this player had 25 penalty minutes. That's our player of the week. That's our job. So, there you go.
This week, but...
So, Chris.
It was 29.
Who had 29 penalty minutes?
Jonas Armstrong.
Really?
He got 4 against Cardiff last night and got 25 against Manchester. He got chucked out.
Well, there you go.
Can't remember why, but he got chucked out.
There you go. So, it's time to move on, Chris, to your weekly quiz.
Quiz of the week. All
Quiz
things ice hockey.
The week, yeah, right. Quiz of the week.
Right. All things ice hockey. So for anyone who doesn't know how this works, is it 3 for 12 now?
Yeah, but I have 4 points.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
Track. So the way this works is I have an easy, medium, and hard question. The easy is worth 1, the medium is worth 2, and the hard is worth 3.
Yeah.
So the easy question this week for 1 point.
Before we start, I'm not looking at the Excel spreadsheet you've got for me.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
I'm not looking at it. Just making sure I clarify.
Right.
Okay.
It won't help you with this first one.
Good.
Because it's not Elite League.
Okay.
Right. Obviously, make sure you read the whole question.
Yep.
Right. Easy question, 1 point. What is the name of the brand new podcast presented by Oddman Rush and Chris Gadsby that everybody needs to go and listen to on the Hockey Podcast Network?
Oh, that's a good question, Chris. I believe it's called Brits on Bruins.
Brits on Bruins, the new podcast by Oddman Rush and myself on the Hockey Podcast Network.
Yep, that's a brilliant segue. I was not expecting that at all, but thank you, Chris. So, for those of you who don't know, or you may have heard us mention it over the last few weeks, the Hockey Podcast Network has now gone live. They are providing a 30 to 45 minute podcast twice a week for every single NHL team in the league. So there's 31 teams, 62 podcasts a week from YouTubers and radio hosts and podcasters from around the hockey world. We were very lucky to be asked if we wanted to join, and they wanted us. They gave us the choice of a few teams. We chose the Boston Bruins, especially considering their Stanley Cup Finals visit last season. And the first episode went out earlier today. It's available on Spotify, SoundCloud. Check out their website, hockeypodcastnetwork.com, or I think it's thehockeypodcastnetwork.com. And you can find out how to find stuff there. Or check us out on Twitter, at Brits on Bruins, at HockeyPodNet. We'll put in some links or stuff towards the end, just so you guys can check that out. We'd really appreciate it if you went and listened to it and told us what you thought. We'd like to have a really good first episode. So hopefully the network are like, yeah, these guys are good and people like to listen to them. So if you're interested, even if you're not really a fan of the Boston Bruins, go ahead. We'd really appreciate it. So the first episode came out really well. I was quite impressed with the stuff we talked about. So fun fact.
You talked about?
Well, yeah. We're recording episode 2 tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. Anyway, next question. I'm glad I got that one right.
That's 1 point. Well done.
Thank you.
If you got that one wrong, I would have had a problem.
The icing on the skate?
Back into the Elite League.
Okay.
Which netminder has stopped 100% of the shots he's faced so far this season?
Oh. Wow.
There is one netminder who's perfect.
That's quite the question.
Yes, it is. It's me. What did you expect? Come on.
There's one netminder.
Yep. Perfect.
And this is Elite League and Challenge Cup?
Yeah, it's domestic.
Oh. That's a really difficult question. I know this is the wrong answer.
It's my favourite part of the week.
I know this is the wrong answer.
Right.
Because I saw his stats a couple of hours ago.
Right.
I'm going to go Shane Owen of the Belfast Giants.
What?
I know. He's the top goalie in the league at the moment. So
he has a 90.31 save percentage. He has saved 233 of the 258 shots he's faced.
He's allowed a lot of shots. I'm thinking just league stats. He's allowed 2 goals in the league.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Who is it?
You're the right team.
Oh really?
Just the wrong netminder.
Okay.
It's Andrew Dixon.
I didn't know who that was.
Who was the backup netminder to Stephen Murphy on Saturday night for the home game against Fife. They won by 7 goals to 2, and he came in towards the end of the third period, and he only faced 2 shots and saved them both.
So he didn't even play a full game.
No, but he is the only netminder in the league that's perfect so far this season.
Okay. I feel that's a little bit of a crappy question, but, you know.
Get stuffed. It's a great question.
He came in and stopped 2 shots.
Yeah, and he's perfect so far this season.
Yeah, but he's not going to get credit for the win because he was only in for 1 period.
That's irrelevant. I didn't say who'd won the most. I said who.
Chris Gadsby.
Which netminder? I said which netminder is perfect. I'll tell you exactly how long he was in for. Hang on.
2 minutes and 5
Because I'm
seconds.
going to. Well, I'm not going to. No, I don't think it was quite that bad. Hang on. Where's the netminder change? He was in for 6 minutes and 23 seconds.
He was in the net for He was in the net for just over a tenth of the game, and you're telling me
he's played.
No.
He has played. Max says that doesn't count as a question.
I agree, but no, it's your. I literally streamed for 3 hours yesterday, and I didn't have a single problem. Not a single problem. We streamed for 42 minutes today. It's like nope, which is great. Right, I think we're starting to come back. Right, okay. Let me just send a message in the thing. Right, okay. Hello everyone, welcome back. Sorry. Chris, your webcam has gone really bright all of a sudden. It looks like you're in heaven.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, so it has.
I mean, you are the god of the quiz. So there we go.
Right, and then try blurring again. Does that work? There we go.
There we go. Right. Let's
Right.
try again.
Hard question.
Okay.
I'm guessing you didn't hear it.
I heard like the second half of it.
Okay,
Let's hear it again.
We welcomed some players back from injury this weekend who played their first domestic games of the season.
Okay.
Who got the most points on their return over the 2 games? So who's been out and came back this weekend?
See, I don't know that bit, let alone who got the most points. I don't know.
You really need to learn to start looking at this document before we do this quiz.
I do, but I also have a million other videos to record, so and another podcast to manage. I'm going to go with a completely wrong choice, but I know he scored a goal. Matthew Waugh.
No. You should have listened to your chat.
Oh, no, that's cheating.
But that is cheating, yeah, to be fair. But well done, Ben. It is Joey Martin.
Oh, okay. Yeah, fair
who
enough.
Came back and had 1 goal and 1 assist over the weekend. The other player we welcomed back this weekend, who didn't get any points on the board, is Jesse Forsberg.
Which team does he play for?
Forsberg, he plays for... I'm going to get this wrong now. I'm going to have to look it up. Dundee, Coventry, one of those, I think, maybe.
You tell me.
I know, I'm scrambling through the document now because I've lost it. I did have it earlier and now I've lost it. Chat's going to beat me to this, I can tell.
That's all right. That's what they're here for.
That is true. That is very true indeed. It's not Manchester, is he? Oh, I've lost it. I'll find it.
The suspense is killing me.
Keep going and I'll...
Well, that's the end of the quiz. I got 1 right again. I'm doing solid, like... Every 3 questions you ask, I get 1 right, and it's usually the easy ones. That's great.
It is usually, yeah, but if you'd got that easy one wrong, I'd have had a bit of a problem.
So basically, I had a freebie this week, which is great. I'm not going to complain.
Of course, he's Belfast, isn't he? Belfast.
There you go.
Because he played the first Champions Hockey League game, which is why I said domestic, and then got in and came back this weekend.
Good call. Okay, so that's everything done with the Elite League news and quizzes and stuff. We do have a play under review for this week. So for those of you who don't know how this works,
I'd forgotten.
The play under review is where we take a section that's not necessarily related to the scores or the standings, and usually about British hockey as usual. And
mainly because the NHL hasn't started yet.
Yeah, pretty much. We've got our fair share of things to talk about the NHL. Some little tidbits of news that Chris will be excited to hear as well, because he didn't realise these were part of the list, because I added them like 10 minutes before we went live.
Oh,
That's
I see.
Not the point. So, yeah. Play under review. Now, I did have something else for the play under review, But Chris, there was something specific that you wanted to discuss for the play under review. So
Yes, this is mainly thanks to Max, really, who's in the chat. No, Ben, it's not going to be about block 13, although that is a really good idea from Cardiff.
Oh, what is that? The standing block?
The standing section. I think it went really well from what I gathered, Ben. I'm guessing you were at some of the games. No, this was Max earlier who sent us a message and was talking about how he put up a comment in one of the Panthers forums about fans kind of shouting abuse at the referees when the referees were right and the fans were wrong. And basically around what happened, as I spoke about in the game on Sunday, with Panthers netminder Kevin Carr, who came. There was a lofted high puck that went into the offensive zone for Glasgow. Carr came out of his crease, caught it just outside the right face-off circle, skated into the face-off circle and back out again, back to his crease, and then kept hold of the puck, so the referee had to stop play. And Carr got, rightly so, I should point out, a delay of game penalty for that. And from what I understand from reading the comments and from speaking to Max, there were a lot of fans in his block who were chanting at the referee, "You don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you're doing." And
I would argue that should be pointed towards Carr. Like, first of all, who goes and retrieves the puck from the top of the right face-off circle and then continues to skate around the face-off circle, then go back to the net, then cover the puck? Like, that's not normal behaviour for a goaltender.
Well, from the discussion, because I've seen some of the screenshots, that it was at the referee, and they were saying there was this big discussion about the fans not knowing the rules, and then like some fans were getting a bit irate and saying, "Oh, do we have to like study the rule book before we're allowed to go to games now?" and all of this. But I just found it interesting because obviously the referees do know the rules.
Well, yeah, otherwise they wouldn't be reffing
you would hope so.
To be fair, like, the refs do know the rules. That doesn't mean that they're going to get every single call right every single time. They are human beings. There is space for error. And they can only see it, obviously, once at full speed. Absolutely. Now, they don't get the reviews and stuff. So
the Elite League uses predominantly the EIHL rulebook.
Yeah.
There are a few local variations which they outlined at the start of the season.
Yeah.
Mainly due to time that the game sheets have to be in and stuff. Nothing that actually was different rules of the game.
Yeah. Nothing that affects the actual play.
Not really, no.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm referring here to a couple of rules in the EIHL rulebook. Now, I'll be honest, it does make me sound as though I'm like, oh, I know every single... I really don't know all the rules.
Yeah.
Right?
Bearing in mind, I don't know these rules either.
No, I looked this up.
Okay.
So I'm referring to EIHL Rule 214, delay of game for goaltender freezing the puck along the boards. Now, it says along the boards, but this is also relatable to where he is. So there is a diagram of the offensive zone, and so it's got the goal crease highlighted, which of course he can freeze at any point.
Yep.
Then there's section 2, which is from the goal line to the... What's the best way of describing this? So at the face-off dot where you've got the right angle, they look like L's for the skates.
Yep.
For the furthest ones for those away, that's zone 2. And then there's a little bit behind the goal line, right next to the posts where he's allowed to freeze the puck.
Okay.
And then there's the rest of it behind the goal line and anything further out than the face-off dots where he's not allowed to freeze the puck.
Okay.
Now, the exact rule, that's about the rules. I did find the other one earlier and I've lost it again. But basically, he came out of the crease, and the rule is now that if the goaltender has the puck and he is able to play it, he must do so.
Right.
Now, when he first caught the puck, there were, I believe, I'm trying to picture this in my own mind again, two Panthers players in the defensive zone and no Glasgow players because they'd effectively chipped it from the red line.
Right, okay.
So he caught it and he should have dealt it off to a Panthers player.
Got it.
He got to the edge of the face-off circle, turned around, went back into his crease, by which point a Glasgow player was there, and he frees the puck. Now, the referee gave a delay of game penalty.
As he should.
And as he should, yep. Based on the EIHL rules, he should have awarded a penalty, and that's what he did.
Yep.
Glasgow then scored from the penalty, and then Carr got an abusive official penalty for debating the call with the referee, basically.
Right.
Now, that's not the point of this play under review. The point of the play that was just the example. The point of the play under review is that these fans are giving referees and co a hard time, where it was the fans in this instant that had misinterpreted the rules or weren't aware of the rule change, because it's relatively new, if you remember.
Yeah.
I think it's a couple of seasons old now. Maybe this might be the second season or third.
Right.
So it's still early days for this rule.
Yeah.
So it's a case of, we had this discussion before we came on air of, do maybe the arenas need to do a bit more to explain each call?
So in
That's
my
a good point to
opinion,
start.
in my opinion, based on this specific example, the refs made the right call. It was a delay of game penalty. The fans going, "You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing." And then the example you brought up of, "Oh, so do we have to know all of the rules when we go to a hockey game now?" No, you don't have to. But if you don't know what the rule is, don't chant they don't know what they're doing. Because, by proxy, neither do you. You don't know what you're doing because you don't know the rule either. So...
And if you did know what you were doing and were interested in it, you'd be a referee.
Or you wouldn't chant because you know that's the rule.
Well, or that, yes. I mean,
It's such a simple way to solve this. Like, I have never understood why people chant, like, stuff at players and at officials. Like, if you don't agree with the call, that's fine. You don't need to go and throw them a load of abuse. It's similar with YouTube comments as well. Like, oh, somebody doesn't like a video. They write a super, like, rude comment to whoever the video is. And then, like...
You must have watched the video to know you didn't like it.
Either, if you don't enjoy the video, just don't watch another one. Like, that's not to say you can't give constructive criticism, because constructive criticism is important. But if it's just like, this sucked and I hate it, it's the worst thing ever. How does that help anyone? It's like saying, oh, the referee's awful, he can't do his job. But he knows the rule book. That's part of becoming a referee. You have to study the EIHL hockey rule book. Just because you paid 20 quid to get a seat in one of the blocks doesn't mean you know the rules, you know?
Yeah, I mean, in the press box that I was in, I was above and just to the left of the block in question that Max was sitting in. And I'll be honest, I didn't hear anything, but then again, I wasn't listening out for anything.
Exactly.
And the problem being in the press boxes and the executive boxes on level 4, right at the top, is that you're right next to the speakers and it's a lot louder up there.
Yeah.
Like when the music's playing, you can't hear anything.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So I didn't hear it. I'm going off what I've been told.
Yeah.
And from what I've seen. And I will always I watched it and I was with Chris Ellis, my colleague at the time, and we both said it was the same. He even checked the EIHL rulebook on his laptop at the time, and we both agreed it was right. And I mean, we didn't mention it. Didn't mention it after that. But one suggestion that came up was maybe the arenas should do more. And I know Max suggested to us earlier that maybe they should put up an explanation of the penalty on the screen.
Yeah.
Now, the thing with that is, I mean, that's a good idea in principle, of course. The slight difficulty is that there are 226 rules in the EIHL rulebook, and Many of them, including this one I'm looking at, 225, has 5 parts.
Yeah.
So
it's a bit too much to ask for them to find it immediately. And by the time they find it and show it up on the screens, play's already resumed anyway, and they want to watch the games. They're like, get that off the screens, we don't want to see it. You're like, with something like that, you just can't win. You know? Like,
no, you can't. They can't win. And I mean, I will always... I see it in the... like when I've done the Lions live streams as well, particularly the last one I did, there were people in the chat going, oh, they've missed a tripping call. Oh, they've missed another tripping call. Oh, they've missed that call as well. Oh, they've missed that call.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I will always stand up for referees. I've not done it in ice hockey, but I've done it in football. It's difficult.
Yeah, absolutely.
You get it once from one angle in real time.
Yeah.
And you have to make a call in a split-second decision.
Based on what you saw from that angle at just once.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We have, and you know, some people might not like this, but we have really good referees in this country. Look how many
go
to EIHL championships.
Yep.
We've had referees there, we've had linesmen there, we have good referees. And you've also got to remember that this is not a full-time job.
No, absolutely. For most referees, yeah.
They have jobs in the week. They're normal 9 to 5, like I do, and you do. You have your job in the week.
Carry on.
And then they go to the ice hockey at the weekend, and if it's a midweek game as well, that's tough.
Yeah.
You know, so I will always stand up for the referees.
However, just to play devil's advocate from what you're saying, I completely agree with what you're saying. Like, the referees that we have in the UK, for the most part, are pretty solid referees.
Yes.
That doesn't mean they're immune to criticism.
No.
But it does make them immune to abuse. Just like players.
No one should get abused doing their job.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm not being funny, but if you were to do that, let's say, for example, at the conductor on a train doing the tickets, you'd then have the transport police at the next station and you'd end up in the back of a police car.
Absolutely.
So why, just because you're sat in a stand, should you be able to shout it at someone doing their job?
But like, it's no different than a load of the fans turning around to one of the other fans and going, "You're not cheering right. Learn how to cheer for the team properly. Come on, you're rubbish. You suck as a fan." Like, what's the point? Everybody enjoys the game in different ways. I'm the sort of person that I like when I go to hockey games, which isn't very often, granted, but like I cheer along, but I'm not one of these people that gets so into the game that I have to shout and swear at every single call that's made. Not at all. I'm just enjoying the game for what it is. And like, don't get me wrong, referees do miss calls.
Of course they do. They're only human.
But they don't have the luxury of watching it from a broadcast perspective. They don't have the luxury of watching it and seeing all of the different angles in slow-mo in between plays.
Yeah, and
they
even
see it on the ice at that moment.
Even the fans who still get one angle real time.
Yeah.
For, let's say, 80% of the fans have a different angle to the referee.
Absolutely.
Because they're at a different point.
Well, none of them are on the ice. So they'll never have the same angle as the ref.
They might be behind the referee in a direct line, but a lot further away.
And some might argue, well, that's why you have 2 referees and 2 linesmen. Yeah, but that's still not
every angle.
They're still human beings. Errors, things going wrong happen. The only problem I have when calls aren't made is or calls are made when they shouldn't be, is when they severely affect a very important game. So in my opinion, Game 7 of a series, 5 minutes before the end of the game. You know? That's the stuff that, like, that's when I criticise referees the most. Other than that, if it's a regular season game, you can always use the argument, oh, well, we could have scored if we had that power play. Yeah, but you had 60 minutes to score more goals than the other team. Like, it's not an excuse.
With regards to the missing calls that they shouldn't have done or vice versa, that's why in the NHL they have Coach's Challenge.
Absolutely. Yeah.
which is really good. And they
Which
it's
they've
won a game, isn't it?
Yeah, they've now opened it up to a whole number of other calls.
Yes,
It's
they've
not
added
just
more stuff
goaltender
to it, haven't
interference
they?
or
I
entering
would
the zone.
say, is that something that they do in the Elite League, but they haven't got the video and the personnel to do it?
Haven't got the video, haven't got the personnel, and they know the fans would get furious with it. They
Yeah, I mean,
wouldn't
just
want the
look at
fans
VAR
waiting.
in this country and
Yeah,
the fans'
exactly.
reaction to that.
Yeah.
But no, I think I think you've got to remember that the referees are doing a job to the best that they can, just like you do your job as a mechanic, a driver, an office worker, whatever.
Hockey YouTuber.
Yeah, they are doing their job just to the best of their ability, just like you do yours.
And they
you
have their
wouldn't
good
want
days.
abuse, so don't give them abuse.
They have their good days and bad days, just like you do at your job. You know, just like I do at my job, just like I would imagine Chris does at his job. We all have good days. We all have bad days. We all have days that things maybe don't go our way, or there's just a load of things that pile on us at once. So yeah, I completely agree. Like, but this is a circumstance where the referees were right. The referees knew what they were doing. They made the right call. It's just the fans either thought they knew better or didn't know the rule. In which case, educate yourselves. Like, there's a chance for you to go, okay, I don't quite understand why that call was made. Let's go check the rule book. And sure, some people might not be interested in that, but then don't complain with the call. Like, I find it very interesting. It's like, oh, so we have to know all of the rules, like, into the game. Then don't complain.
No,
if
I don't know all of the rules.
Yeah, I don't know all the rules either, but I'm not the sort of person to shout a load of abuse at the ref because my team got a penalty.
No, everyone's got an understanding of them, but it's just some of them are open to interpretation.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know who said it, but it's one of these quotes where they say, it's not the making of the mistake that defines you, but it's what you learn from it.
Absolutely.
Every game is filmed now. So okay, referee missed a call. Let's go back, watch the tape. Oh yes, there was the call, but you can see from my angle that I couldn't see this flailing arm or whatever.
Yep.
So, and don't think that they aren't trying to do the best that they can and always trying to improve, because everybody is always trying to improve.
Absolutely. And speaking of fan reactions, I'd just like to bring up a couple of brief things from my original Play Under review before we move on to some of the NHL stuff. I've got lots of quick stuff to look at afterwards. But based on fan reactions and stuff, so there's a couple of things that took place in Sheffield over the last week where I'd just like to get Chris's reaction and mention it to you guys. So the first one being a representative of the Steelers who shall go unnamed. Those of you that follow the league will probably know who he is.
Yeah.
But we're not going to name names here. He put out a tweet how he was very happy that himself and a cohort of people that work or are around the Steelers organisation won themselves the 50-50 prize pot winning ticket at the arena for I think it was the Saturday game, I want to say. Or was it last week?
It was last week. It was last week.
So he won a portion of the money that fans put in to buy those tickets to try and win.
I think it was about 1,100 quid.
£1,100. Bearing in mind, he's a representative of the Steelers and works with the Steelers very closely. In my opinion, I don't think that should be a thing. You don't really hear many, people brought this up on Twitter. I was pretty sure that people either affiliated or working for a certain company, if that company holds a competition, unless it's for the employees only, the employees can't enter. Because then it just brings into question whether it's rigged from the start, which something like this was somewhat criticised for. What do you think about it, Chris?
I won't say I'm on the fence, because I do have a side, but I can see the other side.
No, I can see, yeah, absolutely.
So I can see why the fans are annoyed.
Yeah.
Naturally. However, he puts his money in every week, just like everybody else.
True.
And as he said on his Twitter, he's down thousands over the course of the time he's been with the Steelers.
True.
So,
but then again, he's employed by the Steelers. So is he? Like, is he really that, like, out of pocket?
Well, I mean, okay, so we have 50-50 sellers come round the boxes into the press room.
Right.
So if we buy one and we win, is that, because we're not a fan, we're there working, affiliated with the club to an extent.
But you're not. No. This is where I think the difference lies. You and your colleagues are working for a separate entity that focuses on the team. He works for the team and also serves in separate entities with other stuff. I think there's a clear difference there. Like, you aren't employed by the Nottingham Panthers.
No, that is true.
You're employed by the BBC to cover the Nottingham Panthers. He is employed by the Sheffield Steelers. He's not employed by the Sheffield Star to cover the Sheffield Steelers. There's a difference.
That is true, yeah.
That's the only point I'd make. I'm purely playing devil's advocate, obviously.
Yeah. To
be perfectly honest, I don't really care, because I wasn't there and I didn't buy a ticket. But I can understand why fans would be upset by this.
I can understand why fans would be. But I suppose the only way to kind of do it is to have kind of more transparency and do it in between periods, actually on the ice or something, and get a random fan to draw it or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
That
could be fun.
It was an interesting kind of debate for an evening. I think it will quieten down after about 2 hours.
Oh, absolutely. It always does. Especially with the Steelers organisation. The Steelers fans move on to something else to be mad about, which we'll talk about in a second.
But I think it was, for me personally, I think it was a lot over nothing, because they do put the money in the same as everybody else, but I can see why fans are annoyed.
Yeah, because he is a part of the organisation. The other thing Sheffield Steelers fans were annoyed at recently this week is the Sheffield Steelers webcast. For those of you who don't know, the webcast this season went up from £10 a game to £15 a game. And there was some internet problems, Wi-Fi problems, similar to what we have on the Icing on the Skate podcast every week by the looks of it, except last week. Last week went pretty well. But
last week went fine.
Absolutely. But the difference is, you guys get to watch this for free.
That is true.
People have to pay £15 a game to watch.
15 quid, which is, I don't actually know what their ticket prices are. I'm going to pretend to buy a ticket.
£20, £25 is a ticket.
Okay. So you're not really saving anything.
No. So this is what I wanted to come on to before we moved on to the NHL stuff, because I know we've gone quite far away in time compared to what we usually do.
Yeah, we're quite behind, aren't we?
What are your thoughts on... Of course, situations occur. Problems happen. Like, that's fine. I'm not to say, like, of course it would be perfect if the Sheffield Steelers webcast was perfect. It should try to be perfect as much as possible. But accidents happen. Problems occur, as you know with this podcast. We don't mean for it to happen.
Yeah.
We feel bad for it happening.
With the Lions, I know far and away what the... But okay, so I've just gone on the Steelers. Steelers versus the Panthers towards the end of November. The game, really. Yep. Maximum ticket, £19.50. So you're only saving yourself like £4.
Yeah, and that's not including a booking fee.
And so you're not saving yourself enough to warrant it.
So my next question is: do you think that paying £15 a game is worth it?
No,
not at all. Which is why I haven't bought a single Sheffield Steelers webcast since the season began. So...
No, 15 isn't worth it.
No.
I would go... to me, obviously I'm on massively, I'm on massively saving time. 8 to 10, I'd perhaps go... I would perhaps pay 15 if it was like the cup final, but now it's on Free Sports, so...
Yeah.
But I remember I paid 10 for the Continental Cup final when Panthers won it.
Yeah. £10 is that's like a league-wide thing, except for the Steelers. So make it £10 again. The fans are just going to complain every time something goes wrong and say, I spent 15 quid on this, that's awful. So, there you go. But anyway, let us know your thoughts about that in the chat. We'll take a look at them. If you want to let us know your thoughts in the as we go along, then feel free. We're going to move on to the NHL now. We're going to go across the pond. Just a couple of really quick things that I noticed. I'll go through all of them, and then Chris, you can give your opinions afterwards if you want. So, the NHL preseason has pretty much ended. There's one last game taking place as we speak, which is the Philadelphia Flyers in Switzerland playing Lausanne, or Lausanne. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce their name. Doesn't really bother me. So that's the last preseason game of 2019.
Have you watched the training camp video yet?
No, I haven't. It's on my
No,
list.
I haven't yet. I saw it, and I haven't. It's not come up yet for me.
I haven't got around to it yet. I want to watch it. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the Flyers, but I'm interested. I have a feeling it's very much going to have that Road to Winter Classic feel, which will be great.
Who was it last year? I've forgotten. They did one last year. Yeah, those behind the scenes videos.
It was the Devils, wasn't it?
Oh, it was the Devils. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
So preseason pretty much comes
live
to an
games.
end.
Oh, that's interesting.
What's that?
Start of the second period, and Philly are 3-0 down.
Really?
They are
Wow.
3-0 down.
Interesting. So Wednesday night, so early Thursday morning for us folks in Europe, is when the 1920 NHL season finally gets underway. I am very excited. Going to watch, I believe it's the Maple Leafs and Ottawa at Scotiabank Arena. Going to watch that game. Maybe there'll be a captain announced. It depends if Austin Matthews wants to drop his trousers at anybody else. We'll figure that out. Chris, you don't know about that, do you?
So what? Austin Matthews. Yes, no, yeah. I know it roughly. Wasn't it at night something and he mooned somebody or?
Well, he dropped his trousers, but his underwear was still up. And it took place in March, and he tried to very much keep it quiet until the person.
Yes, I saw a video about it.
Basically, the one thing I've taken from this, people agree or disagree. It's like some say boys will be boys, some say it's not right. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. Don't be an idiot. I get that he's a kid. He's 21, 22. I'm 21, 22, and I would never do that. So,
yeah.
It's not an age thing. It's a maturity thing. And they were probably going to name him captain on opening night. So there you go. Well done, Austin Matthews. Good job, bud. And that's not to mention, from my perspective, just don't do it. It just causes more problems than the joke that you make out of it.
Trying to hide it probably didn't help.
Exactly. And you're trying to be funny and you've had a few drinks. Just be sensible, for God's sake. Be sensible. Especially when you know that you are potentially the future captain of one of the biggest franchises in the NHL. Just be a bit smart about things.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's about
disappointing.
It is, and it's about obviously making sure that you represent who you represent in the right way.
Which, I mean, I can understand what people say, but he's not a Maple Leaf all year. He's got to be able to be Austin Matthews too. Sure, but if the Austin Matthews that he wants to be is getting drunk and dropping his trousers at people, then it's just not a good look. Austin Matthews, don't get me wrong, incredible hockey player. I don't think he's the spawn of Satan because he's done something like this, but you got to show a bit more respect to other people. It wasn't that funny. I think anybody that wasn't drunk with you, egging you on like the yes men they are, would think that was funny. The person that you did it to clearly didn't find it funny, so don't do it. It's dumb. Don't do it. That's my advice to anybody watching. Don't be an idiot. It comes back to bite you in the arse. Anyway,
it does.
So, contracts. Lots of restricted free agents finally announcing that they've signed contracts. I'm just going to go through them very quickly.
Yeah, just race through them.
Patrick Laine finally signed a contract. Mr. Fortnite. 2 years, $13.5 million with the Winnipeg Jets. Average annual value of $6.75 million. So, lots of questions whether he was going to be traded. Lots of questions of whether he was actually going to be on the team to start the season. Patrick Laine will be on the Winnipeg Jets roster come opening night. Speaking of the Winnipeg Jets, Kyle Connor recently signed a big contract. A 7-year, near $50 million contract with the Jets, 49.98 to be exact. And it has an average annual value of $7.14 million a season. Meaning, for the next 2 years, Kyle Connor is going to be paid more than Patrick Laine. Just goes to show what a year can do, folks? And he's got a massive payday. He's going to stay with the team, I would imagine, for a long time. 17th overall pick in the 2015 draft. He's had some pretty impressive seasons so far. He led rookies in goals and finished 4th in points in 17-18. He scored 31 goals in his rookie year. So Kyle Connor's a solid player. He's back with Winnipeg for the next 7 years. And then last but certainly not least, Mikko Rantanen. Both Rantanen and Laine were training in Switzerland, in Bern, I believe, in SC Bern. Mikko Rantanen has signed a 6-year contract with the Colorado Avalanche. I believe it's just under $10 million a year. He was, of course, a very big part of that Landeskog, McKinnon, Rantanen line that scorched the league for the first half of the year and played pretty well for the rest of the year, but the team didn't play so well. So, yeah, he's got a contract as well. Quick thoughts, Chris. What do you think about those contracts? Good?
Yeah, I think that they were going to sign, as we said not as we said last week, as we said on the Brits on Bruins podcast, which you can get on the Hockey Podcast Network.
Yep.
They are key players that are, we're going to sign.
Yeah.
They wanted to get going, similar to Boston.
Because we were mentioning Charlie McAvoy.
We were, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and
I love how social media loves to hype up like, oh, it's 3 days until the start of the season and they still haven't signed yet. Oh, you're halfway through training camp and they still haven't signed yet. The players ultimately want to be playing hockey. It's the agents for the most part that try and rack up the price. So, the players are eventually going to go to their agents, look, I don't mind taking a bit of a pay cut from what you are trying to get. I want to be on the opening night roster. I want to be playing hockey. They all saw what happened to Nylander last year. He missed 2 months of the season and didn't have a very good year. So that's exactly why they want to be
there. If you knock $500,000 off and you're still earning $6.2 million, you're not going to complain, are you?
Exactly. And especially for a guy like Patrick Laine, it's a 2-year contract. He could get, with the salary cap increasing, if he keeps playing well, he could get paid in 3 years' time. He could be one of the highest earning players in the NHL.
Yeah.
If he puts up 40, 50 goals in the next 2 years each. Those are the contracts that took place. So Connor's contract, I think, is very good. A nice average annual value, especially if he keeps growing and keeps playing like a first, second line winger. That'll be a steal of a contract for the Jets in years to come. Mikko Rantanen, very similar. If he keeps putting up points with McKinnon, those two very much complement each other. And Laine, if he keeps playing well, if he bounces back from a slightly down year, even though he scored 30 goals last year, bearing in mind, he had a lot of problems. He went a long time without scoring, but he scored 30 goals last year. If he scores between 40 and 50 each of the next 2 years, he is going to get paid, and paid very nicely. So it's all of the contracts seem to very much benefit their organizations. And once again, it kind of shows you how Carl Dubas just seemingly can't negotiate contracts. I mean, he's got $40 million locked up in 4 players. And then you've got guys like McAvoy, Werenski, Rantanen, Provorov, all these guys taking much less money. And they're that's not to say Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews aren't solid NHL players. They are, and they will continue to be, I would imagine, barring anything going wrong. But still, you gotta kind of put your foot in the ground sometimes and be like, plant your feet and go, no, we're not going to budge on this. Do you want to be on the roster or not? So there you go. Another little bit of news: a new captain has been announced for the Carolina Hurricanes. Jordan Staal. So Jordan Staal was named captain of the Carolina Hurricanes. He was a co-captain of the Hurricanes during the 17-18 season. And of course, this makes it the second Staal brother to be captain of the Carolina Hurricanes. His brother, of course, Eric Staal, was the captain between 2009-10 and 2015-16. He's entering his 14th NHL season and his 7th season with the Hurricanes. Wow, it has been a long time since Jordan Staal joined the Hurricanes. I can still remember when he initially joined that team, and it's been 7 years. He was the number 2 overall pick by the Penguins, of course, has 510 points in 893 games, and he won the Cup with the Penguins in 2009. So, also to add, Jordan Martinook and Jacob Slavin were named the alternate captains also. And fun fact, there are 6 NHL teams that still remain without a captain for this season, and they are the Detroit Red Wings, the New York Rangers, the Ottawa Senators, the Toronto Maple Leafs, which we'll find out by opening night, the Vancouver Canucks, and the Vegas Golden Knights. The first 3 very much still in a rebuild, or starting a rebuild in some of their cases. So, very interesting to see that. Any thoughts on Staal becoming the captain, Chris?
I'm not overly familiar with the Carolina roster to see if there was anybody that would be a better one.
Not particularly.
The fact that I don't know of anybody that would be a better one says to me that he probably is the best one.
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
I mean, the other argument would have been Justin Falk, but he was traded to the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah.
So, he's gone. I can't really think of anybody else that would be worthy of that captaincy role at the moment. I mean, if Justin Williams was still with the team, there's more than likely a chance that he would still be the captain. Jordan Staal is a good guy to be the captain, though. He was a co-captain before. He knows what being a captain is like. He's always worn an A or a C on his jersey for most of his career. So that doesn't surprise me in the slightest. So yeah, that's everything to do with the NHL, except the global games. For those of you who don't know, the Chicago Blackhawks and the Philadelphia Flyers are out in Europe at the moment. Chicago played a team in the DEL, Ice Bear in Berlin, yesterday in a preseason game, and the Flyers, of course, are playing Lausanne or Lausanne, however you want to call it. And they're meeting up against each other, I believe, to play in Germany, I want to say. I can't remember.
4-1 Philadelphia now losing.
Really? Wow. So the Blackhawks and the Flyers will be opening their 19-20 NHL seasons in Europe. So keep an eye out for when that game is on. It's more Europe friendly in terms of the time it's on. So keep an eye out for it. It should be a lot of fun. But yeah, and then the only other NHL news, check out the Brits on Bruins podcast. We've already talked about that, so
yeah,
just check it out.
Let's not plug it massively.
Absolutely. So, Brits abroad, Chris. Let's go through that quickly.
Right, hang on, because I gave you these earlier, so I'm going to have to go back and find the message. Here it is.
For those of you who don't know what Brits abroad is, there's some British hockey players, some British hockey coaches that are in leagues around the world that used to be part of the British system, but are having some success in better leagues, for want of a better term. Better leagues around the world. Here's our update every week on how they're doing. Chris, take it away.
Liam Kirk.
Hey.
Still 3 points. Now from 3 games. He did nothing in the only game this week against the Ottawa 67s. That was last night.
Which the Petes won, though, so that's good.
Over to Germany, where everybody else seems to be. We'll start with Tomo in the DEL.
Yeah.
This is Paul Thompson, formerly of the Steelers.
And
yep. 1 game last week, and 1 win.
Hey.
The Schweinegger are now 9th on 7 points.
Okay.
Right, Pete Russell.
Hey.
Of course, of GB, Glasgow, etc., etc.
Milton Keynes.
And Milton Keynes, yes. 2 losses out of 2 this week. Sees Freiburg drop from top of the league to 9th.
Wow.
In 1 weekend.
That's quite the stumble.
And then Corey Nielsen and his Lausitz. I'm still not sure actually how you pronounce it.
Lausitzer Fuchs, I believe it is.
Okay, Lausitzer Fuchs.
If we have any Germans watching, which I highly doubt, correct us.
If we do, yeah, we apologise if we're wrong.
Yeah.
1 win, 1 loss.
Not too bad.
10th place, so 1 behind Russell.
And then Russell and Nielsen in the DEL2, we should mention.
DEL2, yes. And then for the players on that team, Hammond, 1 goal, 1 assist.
Okay.
And Farmer, 1 assist.
Hey, so the
Putting up
Brits are
solid
still,
numbers each week. You
Yeah.
know, they're both contributing each week.
the Brits are for the most part going pretty much a point per game so far in the DL2. Like, they're not far off, which
Yeah.
I'm quite impressed with. So fair play to the Brits. They're showing that there are solid Brit players that can go and contribute on a team in what's considered sometimes a better league. You know, the DL2 maybe not so
Yeah.
much, but the DL, like, you know, it could happen. So yeah, that's pretty much everything we wanted to talk about. We've got the last call now, so if there's any quick questions that you guys have, feel free to chuck them in the chat.
Whilst you're
now.
getting your questions in, I need to go and turn my dishwasher off.
That's absolutely fine, Chris, so go for it. Enjoy yourself. So, you know what? While we're doing this, I just want to show you the Hockey Podcast Network. I want to show you their website, because this isn't just for our podcast that I want to show you. This is for the entirety of the network, because some of you guys might be interested in other NHL teams. I'd like to show you what they're like. So, if we just go over here, if we go like so, I'm just going to bring it up for you guys. Here we go. So, if I do this, Chris and I are still there, obviously, but this is the Hockey Podcast Network website. It's got all of the latest episodes from all of the different teams. They've got all of the different logos for each of the teams. Click on the logo, you get taken to the podcasts for the teams. So, there you go. And they've got a Patreon there if you guys are interested, etc., etc. So, right at the top, here's our one. It's the Brits on Bruins. Let's have a look at it right now.
Is this the Hockey Podcast Network website?
Yeah, the hockeypodcastnetwork.com. There's no www. So our first episode already
You're
been
listening
heard.
to the Hockey
Hello,
Podcast
shush.
Network.
The first episode already been listened to on SoundCloud 19 times, which is pretty decent. Pretty decent. It's also
Why is it
available on
not coming
Spotify. So check out Spotify if you want to listen to it. I've got mine on Spotify, and I think it's on a couple of other places as well. So yeah, that's really cool. I'm quite happy with that. It's available on Apple Music as well, I believe. So keep an eye out. Hopefully you guys go and tune into it if you want to. That's Fantasy Sports, and we're back. Hello.
What?
Ben, just to mention, why did you place your player on waivers? Vitaly Kravtsov was sent down to the AHL today, so got rid of him because he's not going to contribute any points to my fantasy lineup, and picked up Alex Tuck, who somebody dropped, so I'll take him. He's injured for the first few weeks or so of the season, but once he gets back, set him up. Sorted. Oh, excuse me. So, now that we're there, we've pretty much been going for an hour and a half, which is what we like to usually hit every week.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we'll end the podcast here. Go and check out Brits on Bruins, please do. I know we've mentioned it a lot, but we'd love for you guys to listen to it and tell us what you think. We want a lot of audience questions on our Twitter, at Brits on Bruins. We want our second episode every week to be fueled by audience questions. I'm going to be putting up a tweet. I'll put up a tweet on pretty much after this podcast ends, just from Brits on Bruins, requesting that you guys give us your questions and your thoughts based on what you've seen so far. Chris and I are recording the next episode of that tomorrow, which should be a lot of fun. And the second episode will be out on Thursday, so keep an eye out Thursday as well. It'll probably be... I'm not sure if it's going to be out Thursday midnight on Thursday, or if it'll be sometime during Thursday. We'll keep updated. We'll let you guys know. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. Thank you, Chris, for joining me once again. It's been a pleasure as always. So yeah, please feel free to like, subscribe, share to the channel. Watch some of my other videos, which are doing really well at the moment. Definitely go and do it. But thank you very much for watching, guys. And we'll see you again next week at 7 p.m. Good night.